just wanted to touch on this point of doctors struggling to be online because it's so true in today's world. So many of us are professionals, and in achieving that state of professionalism, we usually sort of worked hard behind the scenes, and we're, across the board pretty humble in terms of the characteristics that define us, where it comes to at least my colleagues and everyone else who goes into healthcare and wants to just work on healing. We don't really think about the concepts of marketing. And so the world of today is extremely challenging because you do have to push yourself out there. And a lot of times you gotta do it alone. Marketing for yourself leads to greater autonomy and more negotiating power. And because we haven't always traditionally been strong in negotiating, we now feature a free series by Dr. David Norris inside of doctorsonsocialmedia.com. This little reel showed up on my feed the other day, and it was so relevant and it was so funny. Take a look. So some of you that are watching this could be saying, well, why does a doctor even have to be on Instagram? Why do doctors have to be on social media when they are supposed to be behind the exam room door treating patients? And to that, I have a lot to say. Part of that I did address in an episode of the Doctors Exploring Social Media series, and I did that with Professor Robert Saul, who uses social media to promote his book and to get out a message that is important to him. And so you should definitely check that out. Take a listen to a very small snippet of Professor Saul speaking in that episode.
Was to be truth tellers. Now, the truth be told, we also have other aspects of our lives that we would like to promote. And sometimes that seems to be apart from medicine, but that's part of what we do. So if we want to also talk about real estate, if we also want to talk about other things, that's an important part of what we do. So it's perfectly legitimate for doctors to couple those things in a doctor group.
But for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to say, well, we are working in a current healthcare system that is not making us happy. Needless to say, burnout is at an all-time high. And the attrition rate in healthcare is high as well. Healthcare professionals are leaving medicine, or they're looking to either have a side gig and reduce their work or retire early. And we don't want that to happen because we want our healthcare workers that have trained for so long, for so many years, have dedicated so much of their lives to the field. We want them to stay in it because otherwise it's looked at as wasted resources. I know that personally speaking, when I left clinical medicine, I was considered a wasted resource by some in a article that I wrote for Medscape, and some of the comments there were basically insinuating that I was somehow wasted. We need to dig deeper and sort of look past those insults and think through why it is that we are leaving. And we are leaving because we do not get the respect that we once had, and there are others that are making the rules for us. So, circling back to the issue at hand, how do you beat burnout? How do you gain back the respect that makes you stay in a field? Well, one of those ways is to market for yourself and to build up worth, to build up self-worth. And that's where the online world comes in really handy. And there's a lot of tools for us to do that. But then in comes this sort of issue of that's holding us back. And it's that we don't want to put ourselves out there because we are scared of vulnerability. I think that we're just scared of how others are going to judge us. I think that that's a fair assumption to make for my colleagues, just because I've been doing this for so long. And I really do feel personally what holds me back from creating more. And it's this sense of vulnerability. Here's a tweet I came across that was so relevant to this discussion. It reads, "You'll never get treated correctly by people who think kindness and vulnerability are weaknesses." Think about that for a minute. Now, there are degrees of vulnerability, of course. So putting yourself out there on video is not necessarily going to mean that you need to become vulnerable. But for some professionals out there, just the act of putting yourself out on social media or in a video makes them vulnerable. And what I'll draw your attention to is that if you aren't putting yourself out in certain situations where opportunities can find you, then you're not going to be enjoying those opportunities. That opportunity is never going to come your way. And that's really an important and powerful message to think about. Let me show you something. Now, this tweet here is timely because today it was announced that Florence Pugh is the new face of Valentino. Now, the reason I'm bringing your attention to it is because it says that she is known for her authenticity, vulnerability, and fearless self-expression. And so that is just so perfect for this conversation, because maybe if she wasn't so vulnerable, she never would have had the chance to become the face of such an iconic brand. Now, remember that vulnerability is based on our judgment. What makes us vulnerable? What to us is vulnerability, right? We each have our own definition. The second thing I want you to remember is that she is in show business. And so I am just applying this as an example that we can then apply into medicine. You can pose, for example, in your clinic, and that for some people is vulnerable. For other people, it's just really great marketing tactics because you can open up your work to potential patients that would really connect with that vulnerability and come in to see you. Vulnerability is really an interesting thing because it really, nowadays especially, can help you to propel your message if it's tackled in the right way.